Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like a stubborn case of chlamydia, I'm back. My thanks to the brilliant Ben Leo for doing a great job over the last few weeks. Let me tell you, I've missed you hugely, and you and I have got a lot of work to do in the next few weeks. It is 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online, in the United Kingdom and across the world for the first time in September. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, the New England manager has insulted a nation by refusing to sing the national anthem. Why is it such a crime to love this country? I'll be dealing with this unpatriotic numpty in no uncertain terms in just a moment. Also tonight, could Lucy Letby be the victim of an unprecedented miscarriage of justice? I'll be asking a former top ITV psychologist whose shocking new book profiles the world's most serious serial killers. Civil war erupts in the Tory party as Team Kemi Badenoch accuse Robert Jenrick of dirty tricks. We'll get the unrivalled political insight of Neil and Christine Hamilton. And in my take at 10, another car crash at the BBC as a former Top Gear presenter slams the corporation for putting the lives of some of their biggest stars in danger. Did Freddie Flintoff nearly die as a result of BBC incompetence? I'll be unpicking that scandal at 10. Two hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. I'll see you after the news headlines with the very unboring Tatiana Sanchez.
Mark, thank you very much and welcome back and good evening. The top stories. The Prime Minister says the NHS in England has been broken by successive Conservative-led governments, and he says the state it's now in is unforgivable. Sir Keir Starmer told the BBC's Laura Koonsberg that a review of the health service to be published on Thursday finds changes to the NHS were hopelessly misconceived. He said austerity in the coalition years and then the Conservative government's handling of the COVID pandemic left the NHS in an awful position. This report's expected to reveal that more than 100,000 infants up to the age of 2 were left waiting for more than 6 hours in accident and emergency departments in England last year, and it's also likely to pinpoint falling vaccination rates and rises in ADHD medication and in eating disorder-related hospital admissions for children. Well, Sir Keir Starmer met with his Irish counterpart today as part of a commitment to reset relations between the UK and Ireland. They say coordination on security policy will be among the priorities of planned annual UK-Ireland summits. The Prime Minister and his Irish Premier Simon Harris agreed the terms of the leader-level meetings as they held talks in Dublin this afternoon. The annual summits will focus on several key areas, including security, justice and global issues, climate, energy, technology and innovation, growth, trade and more. A joint statement said their meeting marked the start of an ambitious programme towards a renewed and strengthened partnership. The first meeting will be held in March.
About moving that reset on, cementing it and making it ambitious. We're clear that by March we want to have a summit to show the yield from this and then annual summits after that. We are also resetting our relationship with the EU, and I've made it very clear that I want a closer relationship with the EU. That's of course on security, on defence, but also on trade, reducing the friction, and any business here in Ireland will tell you that reducing the friction helps, and so we want to reset that relationship.
In other news, the Met Office has issued a yellow weather warning with heavy rain predicted in southern parts of the UK from this evening. The Met Office has said a new band of heavy and thundery rain will arrive on the south coast and will make its way north overnight. It says some places could see up to 100 millimetres of rain, and there was a risk of power cuts and cause to travel disruption. And England have won their UEFA Nations League tie against Ireland this evening. Declan Rice with the opener of the game just 11 minutes in, and that was then doubled by Jack Grealish on the 26th minute. And this was the first test for England's interim manager Lee Carsley following Gareth Southgate stepping down after defeat in the Euros final in the summer. Well, Carsley didn't sing the national anthem ahead of the game. The 50-year-old former Ireland midfielder had indicated in advance that he wouldn't join in, but he did say he's respectful of the concept. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. Now it's back to Mark.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Tatiana. Good evening. Busy show tonight. The race for the Tory leadership turns nasty. Jeremy Clarkson wages war on Angela Rayner. And in my take at 10, another car crash at the BBC. But we start with my big opinion. Good evening. If you thought that woke Gareth Southgate was bad, with his dreary press conferences, his cautious football and his George at Asda dress sense, then think again. His interim replacement, Lee Carsley, no, me neither, infuriated fans this afternoon by refusing to sing the national anthem at the England versus Ireland game in Dublin, causing no small amount of embarrassment to the players and fans alike. This great country's recent capacity for self-loathing has surely reached its nadir when the England manager, no less, will not sing the traditional song of this country. Carsley, who was born in Birmingham but won 40 Ireland caps, having qualified through a grandmother, returned to Dublin today to coach England in the Nations League campaign, a fruitless competition that has about as much meaning as an episode of Love Island. Carsley has said that singing anthems is something that he has never done. He said the following. He said, "I was always really focused on the game and my first actions of the game. I was really proud of the fact that I found in that period I was wary about my mind wandering off. I was really focused on the football, and I've taken that into coaching." Have you indeed? The Football Association seem to limp, don't they, from one disaster to another. They wildly overspent on that far from perfect national stadium at Wembley. Many consider the St George's training ground an expensive white elephant parked in the middle of nowhere. The senior team haven't won anything since 1966. And although Gareth Southgate helped us progress well in more than one tournament, the football was abysmal. His pronouncements on fostering a better, more caring society were vomit-worthy, and the trophy cabinet remains empty. I'm absolutely mystified that there's now a campaign to give Gareth Southgate a knighthood. For what exactly? How can he possibly be compared to other figures who have been knighted, like Sir Paul McCartney, a man who has sold 1 billion records and whose band The Beatles changed the world? Gareth Southgate isn't even fit to tune Paul McCartney's guitar, let alone share his royal accolade. And now his replacement abstains from representing the country in song. In my view, the Football Association has become a tedious bureaucratic corporation, a cabal of bland pen pushers who are spaffing millions on preserving a football status quo of no victories, no excitement, and based upon today's debacle in Dublin, no national pride. Now, Mr. Carsley is a very accomplished man, a great player in his day and a highly talented manager who delivered for the under-21s, and I'm sure he's a nice guy. And of course, he's entitled to boycott the anthem, just as free speech is of critical importance. So the freedom not to speak, or in this case, not sing a song, is also a sacred right. But what were the Football Association thinking, hiring a man who is unwilling to celebrate the country that he has the great privilege of representing? What message does it send to the fans? Why should they cough up a fortune for expensive tickets and costly replica kits of their heroes when the man at the top considers this to be just another game in the lower leagues on a rainy Tuesday night? And what an insult to our impressive and dignified king. That's right, our monarch, Charles. What an insult that this track-suited upstart can't bring himself to utter the words, "God save the king." God save us, quite frankly. Football is a very important part of this country and our lives here. Football brings our rich and diverse nation together, and the national game is about national pride, something severely lacking from the current manager, who surely merits an early bath. I don't care how many matches this guy wins or doesn't win. It's time to show this unpatriotic crank the red card. Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. But first, tonight's top pundits. We have writer and broadcaster Nina Mishkov, journalist Linda Jubilee, and former national newspaper editor, the one and the only Mr. Neil Wallace. Great to see all three of you. Thank you so much for joining us. A busy Saturday evening. We've got a lot of material to get through. But Nina Mishkov, what a slap in the face that football match was this afternoon.
I'm really relaxed about it, to be perfectly honest. The only football, I mean, the only football match I've ever watched was in black and white, and it was the 1966.
You were right to stop at that point.
I stopped.
Nothing's happened since.
Well, I've missed nothing. So
By the way, you were about 3 at that point, I thought.
I was being cradled in my mother's arms at that point. I think it's, and also because I'm British. I was born in Scotland. My mother was Scottish. My father was Polish. I was brought up in South Africa. I've lived in Scotland. I've lived in London. And people say, "What nationality are you?" I say, "I live in London." So I'm the least jingoistic sort of person, and I understand the national pride and singing, "God Save the King" and all of that. But if he doesn't want to sing it, fine by me.
If the fans don't want to sing it, that's fine. But the players and the manager are representing the nation, Linda Jubilee. I think this is a sackable offence.
I think he should be singing it. I've listened to everything today. Early on in the morning, I listened to all the interviews where he explained that he has a routine. He had it as a player, where he starts in the changing room, he goes into the tunnel.
Talk to the hand, because the face ain't listening. Who cares what his routine is?
He does all of that.
What a tired routine.
In the same way, though, that Johnny Wilkinson had his routine before he kicked a goal, or Andy Murray had his routine before he walked onto court. These routines are very, very important to athletes. Having said that, I've listened to other people saying, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. And in fact, it's how you play the game of life. And that's why he should be singing the national anthem. I can still remember as a young trainee on the Western Mail in Cardiff, and I'm not Welsh, walking into the rugby ground and listening to the Welsh national anthem, and it was the most brilliant feeling. And I think he should be doing it.
Football is there, Neil Wallace, to bring the nation together. That is something that the New England manager has deprived us of today.
I don't think there's any way you can possibly justify someone with such a significant public position who knows full well the paraphernalia that comes with a public position like that, is not singing the national anthem. It is part of the job. The team do it because they want to illustrate that pride in their country. Now, of course, this is more complicated by the fact that Lee Carsley, who incidentally wasn't that great a footballer, as you seem to think, he was a run-of-the-mill player who played internationally for Ireland with an Irish background. And, of course, when you consider the inevitable history, the politics of the fact they're playing in Ireland with the Irish-English history, then it sends a signal. And I'm afraid you can't get away from the fact that in his first big game, against one of the old enemies, as it were, of football,
most
he let his country down.
For whom he played? You know, as
Exactly.
you said, exactly. So
Exactly. So that's the thing.
But the thing is, he never, presumably, when he was playing for Ireland, he never...
He didn't sing the Irish anthem either.
He didn't sing the Irish anthem, and he didn't sing our anthem. So what's the problem?
Perhaps he can't work out his nationality. I mean, maybe the guy's not loyal. He manages England, he plays for Ireland. What a tart!
He says he believes in the concept.
Irish, you know,
he says he believes in the concept. But in this instance, there's no point in believing the concept. You have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Most definitely. Do you think, briefly, Linda, that it was naive or indeed foolish of the FA to appoint this guy as interim manager, knowing that he wouldn't sing the anthem?
Did they know beforehand, though?
Would they have done their due diligence, Neil?
My guess is, knowing bureaucracies, knowing particularly the FA, they will not have researched him fully and will not have known this. And they've found themselves with their trousers around their ankles yet again, and they should just say, no, sorry.
All of that, but he will be judged on results, and the fact that England beat Ireland tonight will weigh more heavily than the fact that he didn't sing the national anthem.
There you go. Well, should the new or interim England manager face some kind of punishment for his unwillingness to sing the national anthem? Is he unpatriotic, or is it his right to abstain? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Now, coming up next, civil war erupts in the Tory party as Team Kemi Badenoch accuse Robert Jenrick of dirty tricks. We'll get the unrivaled political insight of Neil and Christine Hamilton next.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
So, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are non-crime hate incidents a breach of your human rights?
It's crazy, isn't it? Freedom of speech is now on life support here, and we've had, in the last week alone, we've had Elon Musk being threatened. He's now out of Brazil with X. We've had the founder of Telegram basically being arrested, and he's been charged in France. We're not quite sure the circumstances why he was there, whether Macron invited him to the Olympics or whatever, but he's been arrested under several charges. And we've had all sorts of people who've been speaking out are basically being shut down. So it has to be freedom of thought. It has to be freedom of expression. It's one of our fundamental rights under the Human Rights Act of 1998. Article 10 gives you the right to express your opinion and also to air that publicly.
It's basically, I say something that somebody doesn't like, so probably one of my monologues, then somebody can then inform the police that I've upset them in some way, and then that goes on my record, so I now have a criminal record because somebody else who I've never met, who's never met me, has heard something that upset or hurt your feelings. Then if I go for a certain job or I go for my DBS check, which I do regularly because I go and talk in schools, somebody could pull that up and go, well, you did something that had hurty feelings, and so now you can't have that job. That has got to be a breach of my human rights.
Oh, absolutely. Article 10, it's a fundamental right to protect your freedom of speech and so on and so forth. And this is what's really worrying, because it's happening around the world, as I say, in Brazil, in France, in various other countries. In America, you know, Zuckerberg, he came out in the last few days and said the pressure that he was put under by the Biden administration, first of all about COVID, and even jokes he was told to suppress them. The other thing that he was saying about the Hunter Biden laptop. And he said he couldn't speak about that because they were telling him not to. And what he did, he had to fact check, and he turned around and said he regretted that, because the reality is you're working on that sort of basis.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Queer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'll get to your messages in just a moment regarding our interim England manager who refuses to sing the national anthem. You couldn't make it up, could you? But first, the big story. Now, the Times newspaper report that supporters of Kemi Badenoch fear that she's the victim of a dirty tricks campaign designed to push her out of the Tory leadership race. Badenoch's team are privately questioning the results of the first round of the contest, which saw her come out just one vote ahead of James Cleverly, the Shadow Home Secretary. The result led to fears that Badenoch, who had been the bookies' favourite, might not make it into the final two of the contest. Due to behind-the-scenes plotting. The allegation is that those who want to see Robert Jenrick elected leader had lent their votes to Cleverly to boost his numbers as a centrist rival to Badenoch in order to push her out of the race. What a drama! The night of the long knives. Well, let's get reaction. And it's two figures here who are no strangers to political drama themselves. Britain's best-known political double act, Neil and Christine Hamilton. Great to see you both. Christine, is Kemi Badenoch being stitched up?
Well, probably, but I mean, let's be honest, this whole fiasco, it's like bald men fighting over a comb, isn't it? I mean, to be leader of the Tory party right now is a bit of... No, it's a bit of a death knell. But yeah, I'm sure she is, because every time you ask the grassroots, she seems to come out top. I'm not saying she will be the best person, but they like her. And we've seen all this before with Liz Truss, haven't we? Because Liz Truss came out top, she became Prime Minister, and immediately the MPs erupted and said, oh, we can't have that, we don't want her. So the MPs will get who they want. And it seems to me odd, to say the least, that Cleverly has 6 people who have come out publicly and said, we support Cleverly, and 21 people voted for him. Now, you have to say that MPs are the most deceitful, whatever you want to say, bunch of electors in the world. I mean, there is nobody more likely to dissemble and not tell you what they're actually doing. But yeah, I'm perfectly certain there is a Stop Kemi campaign.
Neil, is the Conservative Party, a party that you know well, prone to such skullduggery?
I don't believe that any politician could possibly be guilty of dirty tricks in an election campaign, do you? I mean, this seems to be so far from the reality that it's almost not worth contemplating. No, I think this is spin which is being put out by the Badenoch campaign, of course, because they were disappointed by the vote that they got. So they're now trying to have to explain it in a way which they think might make things better for the next stage of the campaign. But the reality is that, as Christine says, we've got all these people who are bald but fighting over a comb, in a sense, because nobody's actually talking about what the Conservative Party needs to do in order to win a general election next time. And that is to focus on why they lost the last one so catastrophically and how they need, therefore, to reverse gear on a whole range of policies, none of which so far seems to have been debated. I'd say this for Jenrick, whom previously I'd never really regarded very highly, because he was elected as a kind of centrist clone of the Cameron elite back in 2015 or whenever it was that he was elected an MP, that he has at least been articulating a different set of policies now for quite some time before the last general election was held. And he at least is raising some of these issues.
And he had the balls to resign, didn't he, at one point?
He did. So, I'm suspicious of him, as I'm suspicious of all of them, actually, because I don't think that any of them has got the kind of credibility with the kind of voters that they need to win back for the Conservatives, let alone the people that they need to convince who have not been Conservative voters in the past to make the changes that we need in this country after 2028 or 29, whenever the next general election takes place.
Now, Christine, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, all of them, with the exception of Tom Tugendhat, and I'm not promoting him, it's of no interest to me, actually, who ends up as leader, all of them, except Tom Tugendhat, they are all collectively guilty, because the last government, they talked right and they governed left. So they are all responsible to a greater or lesser extent. I mean, James Cleverly, he was Home Secretary, he was Foreign Secretary, and goodness knows what else. So they're all responsible for the parlous state in which the Tory party has now sunk, frankly.
And Kemi Badenoch voted for Theresa May's non-withdrawal deal with the EU 3 times, whereas Suella Braverman voted against. And she's not a candidate in the election. So in a way, this election is very substandard because it doesn't really have the kind of debate which we need within the Conservative Party to turn it back to what I always thought a Conservative Party should be, which it hasn't been since Margaret Thatcher.
You're probably right. I mean, it's my view that of the available candidates, Kemi Badenoch has the most personality, the most charisma. She's got something about her, hasn't she? She's an attack dog politician. Christine, you wrote a best-selling book called Great British Battle Axes, which, of course, featured Margaret Thatcher, among others. Do you think Kemi Badenoch could be Margaret Thatcher Mark II?
Well, I'm not sure I would go that far, but she's certainly a battle axe. She's very combative. And it's been said that if Kemi Badenoch was in a room on her own, she would create a fight. And I think, to be honest, I think probably what matters in the next few years is obviously policies, but it's also performance in the House of Commons, and it's performance in particular at Prime Minister's Question Time. And I don't think Starmer would actually know quite how to deal with Kemi. Yeah. She's a woman of colour, and I think he would find that very difficult, whereas he would find it much easier to bat against a male.
OK, now this will change by the day. It's like a stock market. It's like the Grand National. But, Christine, who do you think wins in November?
Oh, goodness me. I have no idea. But my guess is it won't be Kemi Badenoch because she's the one that the grassroots want. And she is the one that, therefore, the Tory MPs will make sure that she's not presented to them.
Neil, who gets the top prize, do you think?
Well, I think it'll probably be between Jenrick and Badenoch. But, I'm not intimately involved with this.
I'm glad to hear it. You're a married man.
But I know there are a few dinosaurs left from my vintage, but most
of them are dinosaurs in your bedroom. Okay.
No, there are only 120 or so Tory MPs anyway today. So given that the person who came out top in the first round only got 20-odd votes, it doesn't really say much for the Conservative Party, does it? This is the problem that they've got.
There you go. Well, that's an interesting perspective from the Hamiltons, that really this is a wake, not a leadership election. Neil and Christine are thrilled to have you back. Catch up very soon. Yes. The formidable, entertaining and charming Hamiltons, Neil and Christine, with their various glasses of wine. OK, folks, lots more to get through. Next up, is Jeremy Clarkson right to slam Angela Rayner for partying in Ibiza? We'll be reacting to his bombshell remarks about the Deputy Prime Minister next.
Hello there. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's turning increasingly unsettled across the UK, particularly England and Wales. We see some heavy rain, some thunderstorms, the risk of some localised flooding. This area of low pressure will bring weather systems across much of England and Wales, some brisk winds at times too, but it does pull away, and then we start to see some colder air filtering in from the northwest as we move through next week. But this evening and overnight into Sunday, heavy rain developing and pushing north across England and Wales. There could be some disruption overnight and first thing Sunday morning. A Met Office warning for the rain out. We could see 30 to 50 millimetres, perhaps locally more than this. Further north, it's drier, temperatures generally staying in double figures. So an unsettled start to Sunday. Outbreaks of heavy rain. So if we zoom in across England and Wales, we can see outbreaks of heavy rain pushing north and eastward. Some drier spells coming in behind it, but quickly followed by heavy showers. The rain extending into northern England too. Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland generally drier. Best of the sunshine first thing across central and western parts of Scotland. Though still low cloud affecting northern and eastern areas. Temperatures around the low to mid-teens to start the day. Through the day, this area of low pressure will just continue to give outbreaks of rain through England and Wales, which will be heavy at times. There'll be surface spray on the road, some localised flooding. Thunderstorms developing where the sun comes out across eastern and southeastern England for the afternoon. Cooler and cloudier for Northern Ireland and Scotland compared to recent days. Temperatures here 17 to 21. perhaps 22 or 23, and feeling still quite humid in the southeast in any sunshine. For Monday, that weather system starts to pull away. It turns drier and brighter from the west through the day, sunny spells, but the wind's starting to come in from the northwest, starting to feel cooler, and that colder air filtering further south as we head towards the middle of the week with temperatures below average for the time of year. See you soon.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, a big reaction to my big opinion. The interim England manager refuses to sing the national anthem. Extraordinary. I think it's a disgrace. And so do you. Daniel has messaged the show. He's a GB News member who says, Mark, I'm afraid it's the usual FA mess-up. It should have been made contractually clear that the role of anyone representing England needs to sign up to the patriotism necessary. If you aren't willing, then you don't get the job. Simples. Gary says, Mark, Lee Carsley is English by birth. He should sing the national anthem. And Glynis, what a lovely name that is, Glynis. Are you messaging us from Wales, I wonder? Glynis says, Mark, Sven attempted to sing the national anthem. Fabio wouldn't, as he said you shouldn't sing another national anthem. Well, then you shouldn't take the job. Lee Carsley should be replaced with a permanent English candidate as manager ASAP. Glynis, couldn't agree with you more. Keep those messages coming. gbnews.com/your say. Now, the star of Amazon's Grand Tour, Jeremy Clarkson, has lashed out at Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner after she was pictured partying in Ibiza. Clarkson, writing in The Sun, says the following. Many pointed out that at a time of great austerity, unless you're a train driver, she should be at work and not throwing shapes on a Spanish dance floor. Plus, he says, if in a nightclub it means she's not in her office dreaming up some more socialism to foist upon us all, then I'll sign up for that. Well, let's get reaction from Nina Mishkoff, Linda Jubilee and Neil Wallace. Are these remarks from Jeremy Clarkson a little ungallant, Neil?
No. The one
this is a young woman in her prime enjoying a well-deserved break in the sunshine.
Well, it's a very interesting phrase, in her prime.
Oh, come on. No, that is ungallant.
She's deputy prime.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, Clarkson goes on to make the main point in this. I see absolutely no reason why any politician shouldn't take a holiday. I don't see why they should have fun while they're doing it. And frankly, I would prefer Angela Rayner to be spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year in Ibiza, throwing shapes around nightclubs. Then at least she's not bothering me and the rest of us.
Everyone
with
chucks in
loads of yeah, absolutely.
All inclusive.
Send your money, folks.
I don't know, Linda. I mean, there's a sort of debate here, isn't there, about politicians? They deserve to have a private life.
Yeah, we've heard it all about Keir Starmer as well, haven't we? There's a big row about him preserving Friday nights and his holiday, and then there was Dominic Raab's holiday when the Kabul fell and all the rest of it. The point is, there's two things here. There's timing. Now, this happened as the winter fuel allowance was removed from old age pensioners.
Yeah.
That means it's very, very tactless. And in communications terms, everything is about perception. And I honestly believe if you're Deputy Prime Minister, you can go away and you can have a good time, but keep it low-key. And if you want to show all these, throw some shapes, do it behind closed doors at a private party, because perception is all in politics, and she should have reined it in. Rayner should have reined it in.
There you go, good headline. I mean, what do you think? Angela's on holiday, she's in Ibiza, she's partying on the dance floor. Is that an appropriate look for a Deputy Prime Minister?
Absolutely. For so long, for centuries, we have been ruled by pale, stale males. You know, boring old Buffton Tuftons.
I beg your pardon?
That's a bit harsh on Neil and myself. Neil's looking quite tan today.
Yes. Yeah, I've been in Cornwall.
Yeah, or he's been on the sauce.
Middle-aged Buffton Tuftons who go home,
rosy-cheeked,
smoke cigars and ha, and go to the opera.
This is terrible sexism on your part, Nina.
I completely agree with you, and it's fair enough because we've taken an awful lot of it for many centuries. Now, Angela represents this country in a more realistic fashion
God help us.
than those
Oh,
two.
really?
There's nothing.
No.
I
thought I was in a good mood when I came on.
Margaret Thatcher...
We're done for.
Whom I loathe, by the way. Margaret Thatcher would have been proud of her because she actually has brought herself up by her bootstraps. When she was 16, she was pregnant. She'd had a terrible childhood. And by dint of her own native wit, intelligence, whatever, she has got herself to this situation which she really deserves.
But see, I don't disagree with any of that.
Yes, but so she can go on holiday. It's not Michael Gove looking sweaty in a nightclub and embarrassing. And actually...
So why is Gove not allowed to go dancing and Angela Rayner is? Both cabinet ministers.
No, I'm saying Michael Gove is allowed to go dancing. But the point being, he just looked embarrassing. Angela looks great. She looks really at ease. She can move very easily. She's not being outrageous. She's not being... she's not twerking.
Yeah, but at a time when the Prime Minister has just made his speech about putting in our belts...
Linda, make your point.
Yeah, just at the time when Keir Starmer has said, you know, we need to tighten our belts. We're going to face this. Things are going to get worse and worse before they get better.
Yeah.
We've removed the fuel allowance from the pensioners. We're saying that life is going to be really, really tough. As I say, it's about perception. No one's saying she doesn't deserve a break. No one's saying she shouldn't go dancing. But think about how you are perceived, because that's what politics is.
How did that footage come to be in the public eye? It was not her personal PR putting it out there.
We just got to be careful these days.
No, please.
Clearly a public environment that she was in. There was a crowd around her.
If you want to go dancing,
honestly,
then you have to go to a public environment.
Neil's not happy. Neil's kicking off.
Don't be so mean.
Come on, Nina. You're a big girl. You've been around.
The woman is a heroine. She's a heroine to many, and she has done.
Are you going to let me get a word in?
Yes, of course. No, go for it.
Please cease rant. She's in the booth, the disc jockey's booth, by invitation of the disc jockey. It's his photographer. The disc jockey has got huge amounts of publicity about it. She knows she's being photographed. She was happily being used by the guy to promote his session, his nightclub. I mean, did she pay to go in? I bet you 50 pence she didn't.
Would Margaret Thatcher allow herself to be filmed in such a manner?
No.
We've gone beyond that. We've gone beyond.
Well, I'd love to go back to it, to be quite honest.
Oh my God! I mean, what? Back to Margaret Thatcher?
Most definitely. Get the economy growing.
I think
get investment up. Get taxes down. Law and order.
Look, destroy the country by selling off the water, by sale of council houses and not replacing them. That woman,
Angela Rayner loves the council house.
From that one.
She benefited by that one, and so that's why I said Margaret Thatcher.
But the point is, the world is full
Linda.
of citizen journalists now, regardless. On top of what you've just said, Neil, which is a very, very good point, the world is full of citizen journalists who are out with their phones the whole 9 yards.
Alison has messaged us. GBnews.com/your say. Someone that was with her filmed her. It wasn't a random person. David says, I wish all of the Labour Party would pee off to Ibiza and stay there.
Seconded.
Gail has said, welcome back, Mark. Clarkson should join Reform. He's another straight talker like Lee Anderson. What about Jeremy Clarkson? Are his comments sexist, do you think?
Some of them are
Linda?
unfair and sexist. I think some of the ones about Meghan, even though I'm no great fan, were extremely unfair.
Was he wrong to
and he was
make
wrong.
his remarks
He was wrong to make his remarks about her.
Right.
And he was technically wrong because we saw evidence of how much trolling and how much suffering she'd had in the weeks that followed his
Rayner,
remarks.
is this attack in today's Sun justified by Clarkson?
I think it's, I think it's
scraping the barrel.
Yeah.
The thing is with Clarkson that he has gone from, male hero and figure of hate, because Clarkson's very Marmite, to this, because of his TV series about the farm, he's become also a national treasure. Now, the thing is, he's an iconoclast, Jeremy, and I don't think that sits easily with him. So he's going to look for a target that's going to make headlines.
If you were, you've edited Red Top newspapers. If you were in charge and you were putting out today's paper, would you be comfortable with that article going to press?
Oh, golly gosh, yes. Nina, you used to be a columnist.
Yes.
Your job as a columnist is to find interesting things to write about.
Absolutely.
One of the most interesting things, those photographs of her dancing and the way she was behaving at the time, as Mark rightly points out, the great debate in Britain was about the fact the labourers stealing pensioners' cold weather payments. It was an absolutely legitimate subject for any columnist, and you know that's true because you used to be. The point being, hang on
one second. Finish your point, Neil.
Yeah, the point is, this woman doesn't care. Don't forget, this is a woman who described all Tories as scum. She's, this is not some wilting flower. She's the woman who. You had a badge that said "Never kissed a Tory." She knows exactly what she knows exactly what she's doing. And whatever you do, you can feel sorry for a lot of people in life. Never feel sorry for Angela Rayner.
Briefly, Nina, last word.
She is a woman. She is unique.
She is that.
She is entitled to do what she wants. And I can only applaud her.
OK, fascinating stuff. Well, look, we'll return to that conversation with the papers at 10:30. But next up, could Lucy Letby be the victim of an unprecedented miscarriage of justice? I'll be asking a former top ITV psychologist whose shocking new book profiles the world's most infamous serial killers. Who are they and what makes them kill? We'll debate that next.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I'm not saying I don't want to be a mum and I'm not saying I don't want to work, but it's definitely not easy.
It's just really tough for us mums, Our job's never done, our work is never finished, and I think it's this movement, the real out-of-office movement, is something that just really resonates with me, and I think we should all talk more about how much work we do. I think a woman's work is never done. But I just think we all feel guilty. We have that mum guilt, If you're working and being successful, you wish you were at home with the kids. And if you're at home, you're thinking, am I doing enough work?
Yeah, and of course the cost of childcare in this country means that a lot of families just frankly make that decision to have one of the parents stay at home, usually the mum, and they're just being squeezed out of the economy, and that's not good either.
Once you've done your job as a working mum, you come home and you're doing another 8 hours on top of it.
Mothers have a tendency, definitely historically, just to crack on with it. It's just something that they are expected to do, that they do without moaning. And now it's like...
Are we getting to a stage where go down that well? In my experience, I have had someone say to me, well, if you can't handle it, why do you have kids?
Oh. Absolutely, and exactly that. We just need to talk about it, and I think it's healthy, and I think that's the main thing now, that we should be brave enough to be able to say, do you know what, sometimes it's difficult, but I'm really proud to be a working mum, and I tell my daughters that. I work really, really hard, and it's a good work ethic for them, and that's what, this campaign's all about.
Is there some resistance still, do you think, from some parts of society?
I do think there's resistance, and that's what this is about, is to try and get people talking about the fact that it has been awkward in the past, and some people don't understand a working mum's life, and that's why we need to try and talk about it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or GBNews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
From the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, a big reaction to our debate. This is Angela Rayner versus Jeremy Clarkson, who has attacked her in The Sun today for her frolics in Ibiza. Lady Westminster, who's a GB News member, good evening, Mark. Anne Rayner is a hypocrite in every sense of the word, and she's not working class. Rayner has been an MP for 9 years. She gets everything on expenses, and she has a top job and is a high earner. She's patronising and a puppet of the leadership. Don't let her way of speaking fool you. That's very harsh words there. And how about this regarding the civil war within the Conservative Party? Kemi Badenoch's team accusing Robert Jenrick of dirty tricks. It's turned nasty. Annette says, Mark, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Kemi Badenoch is being stitched up by the Tory MPs. They want their man to win. They did the same thing to get Rishi Sunak elected. They are a rum bunch. The members will probably end up with someone they don't really want again, says Annette. Thank you for that, Annette. OK, folks, it's time now for this. Welcome back. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which we speak to the biggest names in the world of entertainment, business and beyond. And tonight, whether it's Lucy Letby, Myra Hindley or Fred West, just what makes someone become a serial killer? And how can you spot whether such a person could be your next-door neighbour? Well, psychologist, true crime expert and star of ITV's This Morning, Emma Kenny, thinks that she may have the answer in a best-selling new book, The Serial Killer Next Door, Chilling True Stories of the Killers Hidden Among Us. And it's out now. So, Emma, great to have you on the show. What leads someone to become a serial killer? Is it mental illness or are they just bad people?
I mean, it's just such a massive question to answer. I will say that I genuinely believe nature plays a huge role. I know that people always want to think that the way that you're brought up, full stop, is a big indicator of how you'll end up. And I think that when you look at the backgrounds of serial killers, the majority have trauma, certainly, but lots of people have trauma. So for me, I still come down to the belief that I think on a genetic predisposition level, people are born with a certain streak running through them, and then potentially through their experience on a nurture level, environmental level, they get activated. But I genuinely feel you have to have that thread running through you to actually become the kind of human predator that we're talking about.
And the book is fascinating because in the book you say that serial killers hide in plain sight. They're very good at slipping into society unnoticed. Tell me more about that.
I think when you look about serial killers, when you're talking more about the profoundly organised, or at least those who operate in the more organised context. So when we think about the disorganised or the less organised offender, they're less able to disguise themselves because they're not thinking about playing out violent fantasies, they're acting in the moment. There's an impulsiveness about it. But for those who wear that mask of acceptability, they might be more intelligent than us, they're working with us, they're people we share a bed with, who seem to have intimate connections that work appropriately in relationships, they're bringing up families, they're basically part of the community. They're terrifying because the chameleon level of them is so enormous that they can operate with this dualism, this sense of being completely able to fit in, and yet on the alternate reality that they live, able to commit the most deviant and sadistic of acts without shedding a tear, without feeling any empathy. And that's what makes them so powerfully dangerous. And I think that that's what makes us question everything, because we're like, how can this person that I knew have done horrible things? How can people who I went to church with or shared a bed with, how can they have done this? Because we feel fooled, but we're not. We're not fooled, because if you articulate a vocabulary of emotion where you can be all those things I've just said about being people who can cope in society, but ultimately also go and kill without conscience, it's really hard to see those people because they hide in plain sight.
Indeed, and they can often be very charming and very manipulative, can't they? Which are some of the most chilling cases that you've written about in the book, Emma?
I mean, they're all chilling, aren't they? Because it's just harrowing that these people have taken lives. But I suppose one of the ones that ultimately stays with me is David Parker Ray, who is a toy box killer. Now, fundamentally, one of the reasons for that is because I've listened to all of the actual real tapes that he used to play to his victims. So I got them from the New Mexico place. And so that really resonates with me because I listened to the tapes that the captors were actually, you know, the people who were caught by that captor endured. And they would be caught by him for maybe 3 months before being murdered. So the idea that you are taken and then you are sadistically treated for months and months and months until ultimately you meet your death, probably on one level feeling a level of relief and on the other level feeling that you've been betrayed because maybe you thought you'd escape. Just that mental anguish that women and men can be put through in these circumstances. And more, we're hearing about cases where this is not necessarily as unheard as we would have believed, you know? Even when you think about people who aren't necessarily serial killers, the Joseph Fritzells of this world and the people who are very much like that sadism that just lurks in our society and just seems to be amplifying right now.
You write about a very handsome serial killer called Ted Bundy. What did he get up to?
Well, I disagree with that, full stop. Just because they cast Zac Efron as him in that film, that is not an appropriate casting. Ted Bundy was a literal 4 out of 10 as far as I'm concerned. I guess a spectrum of serial killers and their looks, he wasn't terribly unhandsome. But I think what you see with him again, it's the myth of the man. It's the myth of who this guy was. Apparently he was charming. Apparently he was charismatic. Well, actually, no, there were lots of reports that say he was very socially awkward. And to some degree, he wasn't necessarily this effervescent human being that people have talked about. He had very odd connections as a child. He did go through trauma, but you think about a 3-year-old toddler Ted Bundy being fixated with the knives. His auntie woke up one morning, he'd gathered all the knives from around the house and put them around her body. So early on, we see this man. And then as a teenager, he's a voyeur, he's a sexually, you know, interested man in women who are not actually in a state of dress. So he's looking at you through the windows. And this tells you that right from the get-go, Ted Bundy had this streak within him that was just very sexually orientated in a malevolent way.
And what did he do? What were his crimes, Ted Bundy?
Well, I mean, we think that he murdered around 36, but actually people believe that maybe there were over 100 victims. And he falls outside the perfect organised category because he would actually decapitate his victims and take the heads home with him. But he was effective at making bodies disappear for that point of time. And he was good with his MO. You know, he acted vulnerable. He had a cast on his arm or he had a crutch with him. And it made women feel that he was vulnerable.
So he pretended to have a broken arm?
Right, so he was really good with that. So as soon as he got you over to his car, because he'd asked you specifically to help him, he gave you a sense of social responsibility, and he was vulnerable, so you thought he couldn't harm you. He'd hit you then with a crowbar, lie you down in the seat. He'd have removed the passenger side seat as well. So he had a perfect organised streak, and he had his kill kit with him. This is the kind of way that these individuals operate. You have to remember when it comes down to a serial killer who's organised in particular, at least on the organised spectrum, the victim is the final chapter. They're the final moment, but they've been building chapter and chapter and chapter of fantasy, probably for years. You're the final moment.
Yeah. Well, the clock's against us. I could talk to you all night, Emma. I'm going to give details of the book in just a moment. Lastly, Lucy Letby is in prison for the murder of 7 infants and the attempted murder of 7 others in 2015 and 2016. There are some commentators that believe her conviction is unsafe and that she may be a victim of a miscarriage of justice. Do you have a view on this?
Yeah, and my view has always been that I've been concerned about reasonable doubt where Letby is concerned. So when I think about the court system in the UK, I'm not looking at whether I think somebody is specifically innocent or guilty. I think, is there reasonable doubt to question that they are guilty? If so, therefore, we have to accept that they can't be sentenced. I think what's really interesting about this case is there are a lot of experts coming out who are very, very well educated, very well researched, and very, very experienced in this field, saying that they're questioning it. Now, my problem with that that is that when these individuals are coming forward and we're seeing that actually maybe some of the evidence that people have seen isn't the evidence the jury potentially have heard at the time, I think that should operate some kind of review. Whether it will happen, because the CCRG, as much as they're going to be there to do that, well, let's be honest, it's very hard once the wheels of justice have turned to turn them the other way around. But I question it. I'm not saying she isn't. I'm saying that with what I know, I have concerns, and I think there should be an investigation.
Emma, it's really good to see you again. You spoke a lot of sense during the pandemic. I had you on my radio show almost every day, and you kept my mental health in good shape.
You, Mark, had me on cancelled when was trying to cancel me. So I feel very grateful to you.
Well, you are definitely uncancelled. In fact, let me tell you, you've had a very successful tour of your serial killer show, and the book is out now. It's winning rave reviews. The Serial Killer Next Door, chilling true stories of the killers hidden among us by the brilliant Emma Kenny. Get yourself a copy, a cracking read. In My Take a 10, another car crash at the BBC as a former Top Gear presenter slams the corporation for putting the lives of some of their biggest stars in danger. Did Freddie Flintoff nearly die as a result of BBC incompetence? I'll be unpicking this scandal in My Take at 10 next.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's turning increasingly unsettled across the UK, particularly England and Wales. We see some heavy rain, some thunderstorms, the risk of some localised flooding. This area of low pressure will bring weather systems across much of England and Wales, some brisk winds at times too, but it does pull away, and then we start to see some colder air filtering in from the northwest as we move through next week. But this evening and overnight into Sunday, heavy rain developing and pushing north across England and Wales. There could be some disruption overnight and first thing Sunday morning. A Met Office warning for the rain out. We could see 30 to 50 millimetres, perhaps locally more than this. Further north, it's drier, temperatures generally staying in double figures. So an unsettled start to Sunday, outbreaks of heavy rain. So if we zoom in across England and Wales, we can see outbreaks of heavy rain pushing north and eastward. Some drier spells coming in behind it, but quickly followed by heavy showers. The rain extending into northern England too. Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland generally drier. Best of the sunshine first thing across central and western parts of Scotland. There's still low cloud affecting northern and eastern areas. Temperatures around the low to mid-teens to start the day. Through the day, this area of low pressure will just continue to give outbreaks of rain through England and Wales, which will be heavy at times. There'll be surface spray on the road, some localised flooding. Thunderstorms developing where the sun comes out across eastern and southeastern England for the afternoon. Cooler and cloudier for Northern Ireland and Scotland compared to recent days. Temperatures here 17 to 21, perhaps 22 or 23, and feeling still quite humid in the southeast in any sunshine. For Monday, that weather system starts to pull away. It turns drier and brighter from the west through the day. Sunny spells, but the wind starting to come in from the northwest, starting to feel cooler, and that colder air filtering further south as we head towards the middle of the week with temperatures below average for the time of year. See you soon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online. In the United Kingdom and across the world, this is Mark Dolan Tonight. Lots to get through in this hour. In my take at 10, another car crash at the BBC as the former Top Gear presenter slams the corporation for putting the lives of some of their biggest stars in danger. Did Freddie Flintoff nearly die as a result of BBC incompetence? I'll be unpicking this scandal shortly. Plus, let me tell you, developing tonight. The esteemed royal editor of the Sunday Times newspaper, Rayner, has got the following. After months of cancer treatment, the Princess of Wales is now planning for the future. This is big news, folks. Princess Catherine hopes to join the royal family at the cenotaph and host her Christmas carols. Work is on her mind, but any return will be gradual. That's right. That's a big development in tomorrow's papers. We'll get reaction from our top royal insider. But my take at 10 is coming. See you in 2.
Mark, thank you. The top stories. The Prime Minister says the NHS in England has been broken by successive Conservative-led governments, and he says the state it's now in is unforgivable. Sir Keir Starmer told the BBC's Laura Koonsberg that a review of the health service to be published on Thursday finds changes to the NHS were hopelessly misconceived. He said austerity in the coalition years and then the Conservative government's handling of the pandemic left the NHS in an awful position. The report's expected to reveal that more than 100,000 infants up to the age of 2 were left waiting for more than 6 hours in A&E departments in England last year. And it's also likely to pinpoint falling vaccination rates and rises in ADHD medication. In other news, Sir Keir Starmer met with his Irish counterpart today as part of a commitment to reset relations between the UK and Ireland. They say coordination on security policy will be among the priorities of planned annual UK-Ireland summits. The Prime Minister and Irish Premier Simon Harris agreed to the terms of the leader-level meetings as they held talks in Dublin this afternoon. The annual summits will focus on several key areas, including security, justice and global issues, climate, growth, trade and more. A joint statement said their meeting marked the start of an ambitious programme towards a renewed and strengthened partnership. And the first meeting will be held in March.
Today is about moving that reset on, cementing it and making it ambitious. We're clear that by March we want to have a summit to show the yield from this, and then annual summits after that. We are also resetting our relationship with the EU, and I've made it very clear that I want a closer relationship with the EU. That's of course on security, on defence, but also on trade, reducing the friction. And any business here in Ireland will tell you that reducing the friction helps, and so we want to reset that relationship.
Meanwhile, the SNP has called on the Prime Minister to U-turn on plans to cut winter fuel payments. Research has shown that close to 1 million pensioners in Scotland received the payments between 2022 and last year, but under new plans by the Labour government, 87% of those would lose that financial support. And sport to finish off. England have won their UEFA Nations League tie against Ireland this evening. Declan Rice with the opener just 11 minutes into the game. That was then doubled by Jack Grealish. And this was the first test for England's interim manager Lee Carsley following Gareth Southgate stepping down after defeat in the Euros final this summer. Carsley didn't sing the national anthem ahead of the game. The 50-year-old former Ireland midfielder had indicated in advance that he wouldn't join in, but he did say he's respectful of the concept. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Tatiana. Good evening. Busy show tonight. Legendary actor Sir Ian McKellen brands Prince Harry a thicko. But in better news for the Duke of Sussex, he's set to receive a multi-million-pound windfall on his upcoming 40th birthday. But tonight, a developing story. This thanks to and courtesy of the royal editor of the Sunday Times newspaper, a journalist I know well and have great regard for, Rayner. Here's what she's got for us, folks. An exclusive. After months of cancer treatment, the Princess of Wales, Princess Catherine, is now planning for the future. Kate hopes to join the royal family at the cenotaph and host her Christmas carols. This is a massive story. Work is on her mind, says Rayner, but any return will be gradual. Well, this is the good news that we've been waiting for. I'll get reaction from our top royal insider. Big news on Princess Kate in a few minutes' time, but first, my take at 10. Oh dear, another car crash at the BBC. Cricket legend Freddie Flintoff suffered life-changing injuries in a dangerous stunt on Top Gear in 2022. And I can reveal tonight it did not need to happen. As a handsomely funded broadcasting organisation with an annual income of over £5 billion, you would expect, wouldn't you, the BBC to be faultless in the way that it makes its programmes. In the absence of any commercial pressures and with no adverts, which gives them a huge advantage over the likes of us here at GB News, the BBC should be the gold standard for television production and safety. However, former Top Gear star Chris Harris, who replaced Jeremy Clarkson after yet another BBC scandal, has sensationally told the Joe Rogan podcast that he raised serious safety concerns with BBC bosses months before Flintoff's near-fatal crash. He told them that somebody could be killed, but his concerns look to have been ignored. Take a listen.
There was a big inquiry, a lot of soul-searching. The BBC's good at that. But what was never spoken about was that 3 months before the accident, I'd gone to the BBC and said, unless you change something, someone's going to die on this show. So I went to them. I went to the BBC and I told them of my concerns from what I'd seen. As the most experienced driver on the show by a mile, I said, if we carry on, at the very least, we're going to have a serious injury. At the very worst, we're going to have a fatality.
Someone's going to die, serious injury. This was before the Flintoff crash that could have killed him. Harris also said that he asked to have a meeting with the head of health and safety at the BBC. Take a listen.
And what's really killed me is that no one's ever really acknowledged the fact that I called it beforehand. And it's very difficult to live with that initially for me. When I thought I'd done the right thing. I'm not very good at that. I normally just go with the flow. But I saw this coming. I thought I did the right thing. I went to the BBC and I found out really that no one had taken me very seriously.
Damning. Now, it's worth remembering that Freddie Flintoff may be an accomplished cricketer, but he's not a professional racing driver. This Ashes winner was placed in extraordinary danger in a three-wheeled Morgan car with no crash helmet. During the ill-fated stunt, this national hero's open-top vehicle flew into the air and landed upside down, leading to shocking facial and head injuries, which put Flintoff out of action for over a year and which have left him with life-changing psychological and physical issues. Freddie has been so dignified about what happened. I've worked with Freddie Flintoff. He is an absolute gentleman. And following this devastating accident, quite typically and in character, he made no fuss. But don't be fooled. To give you a sense of how bad the accident was, it's been reported that the BBC paid Flintoff compensation of £9 million. And guess who's paying that bill? You and me, obviously. Now, Chris Harris isn't the only one who has flagged up the dangers that these BBC stars have faced. Here's what another former Top Gear presenter, Rory Reid, said to Times Radio earlier today.
Based on my experience, if you ask me whether putting someone without that level of driving experience in those situations and whether it would end well, no, I don't.
Wow. Now, this is the BBC we're talking about, not some daredevil on TikTok chasing clicks with dangerous stunts. This is our national state broadcaster with an almost unlimited budget. On this occasion, arguably imperiling the life of a national sporting hero. Freddie Flintoff could have died. Is it just me, or does the BBC behave like it's immune from the normal rules that the rest of us face in the workplace? Look at the chaos on Strictly Come Dancing, with celebrities complaining of post-traumatic stress disorder, physical injury and being reduced to tears following their experience on the corporation's biggest entertainment show. Today's papers are full of shocking allegations about Match of the Day star Jermaine Janus, who reportedly sent a flurry of inappropriate messages to a female colleague. And then, of course, there was the unmasking of one of the BBC's biggest stars, the face of its news operation, Hugh Edwards, who was allegedly paying thousands of pounds to vulnerable youngsters, sending creepy messages to co-workers, and who was convicted of procuring the very worst category of child abuse images. Meanwhile, Gary Lineker, on £1.3 million a year to introduce football clips, calls October the 7th, in which over 1,000 innocent Jews were murdered at a music festival, the Hamas thing. Now, I want the BBC to survive and thrive. It's a great global brand and a huge asset. But whether it's the behaviour of its stars, the eye-watering waste, or the chaotic and dangerous management of its TV productions, the BBC is increasingly not fit for purpose. Our national state broadcaster is becoming a national embarrassment. Your thoughts, gbnews.com/your say. Is the BBC still fit for purpose? It's one scandal after another. Let's get to the views now of my top pundits, writer and broadcaster Nina Mishkov, journalist Linda Jubilee and former newspaper editor Neil Wallace. Linda, your reaction to these new revelations about Top Gear?
I think they're really, really worrying. Chris Harris wasn't just warning 3 months ago, or several months earlier, when the incident actually took place, that there were going to be problems. He specifically warned about this particular car. The Morgan's an iconic British car, but it is hand-built. It is quite fragile. And this was a three-wheel car, unstable, and it needed an expert to drive it. And Chris Harris did warn people that that was the case. Yeah. But the BBC paid no attention. And I think this is kind of tied in with a Strictly Come Dancing scenario, where you've got people, these professional dancers are effectively elite athletes, and they are used to performing and behaving in a certain way, and they're then connected with people from the entertainment industry who are very, very capable, but with a completely different set of skills and a lot less resilient in some ways. With Hugh Edwards, I know for a fact that people knew they knew a little bit about what was going on a long time before it ever hit the public arena. With the latest one, Jermaine Janus, I don't know what the BBC could have done about that. I mean, that's his WhatsApp messages, which I often say when I'm doing any kind of communications training, putting stuff onto WhatsApp is not safe. You think it is because it's end-to-end encrypted, but it's not. You can lose your phone can get stolen, your phone can be hacked. The girl or the man you send the WhatsApp messages to can disclose them, and it's a really big problem. He was incredibly stupid. I don't particularly think the BBC's at fault there, but I think in earlier instances, I think it should have been far more responsible.
Well, Neil, another developing story tonight, just breaking, and this is in the Sunday Telegraph. BBC breached guidelines 1,500 times over the Israel-Hamas war. The story goes as follows. The BBC breached its own editorial guidelines more than 1,500 times during the height of the Israel-Hamas war. The report revealed a deeply worrying pattern of bias against Israel. The former director of programmes at the BBC, Danny Cohen, has also written in the Telegraph, Neil, describing the Beeb as institutionally anti-Semitic. Our national state broadcaster's got problems, hasn't it?
It's got very considerable problems, and it's interesting this story breaks tonight in the Telegraph. I'm sure we'll be reviewing it later, but what you are seeing here is that these failures of management, immense failures of management, because that's what they really boil down to. Failure of control isn't just confined to showbiz, if you like. It isn't just about entertainment. It goes into, very worryingly, the news division as well. And I've read that story already, and I can tell you there's some seriously disturbing claims in the analysis that was done over a series of months about the BBC coverage. And, for instance, how often the BBC refers, or how little they referred to Hamas violence as terrorism, how much emphasis they were putting on Israeli military action and reporting the Hamas description and reporting of those cases. It's a really, really shocking piece of journalism. Important piece of journalism.
It is. You're absolutely right, Neil. Obviously, it's a big, big concern about this latest revelation in the Sunday Telegraph, Nina, that the BBC breached guidelines 1,500 times over the Israel-Hamas war. We know that they had to be browbeaten into calling Hamas an actual recognised terror organisation. But can we go back to the main story within the Take at 10, which is two former presenters of Top Gear warning the BBC that the show was dangerous before the Freddie Flintoff crash. A national sporting hero could have died because of BBC incompetence.
Well, that is absolutely shocking. The trouble is that, you know, it's not so long ago since the BBC were an institution that we could be proud of. And along with that pride went a kind of arrogance for those people working within the BBC. Yeah. It was always, you know, the BBC knew best, and they had standards of excellence. I remember in the days when they had a fantastic wardrobe department, a fantastic makeup department. You know, you could go there and be trained in almost every aspect that would deal with television, media and entertainment, and you would be the best trained. Well, that was all kind of put to one side. Yeah. But that arrogance, in a way, still remains in some areas. And added to which, the BBC has been under fire for such a long time from the media, from various governments, you know, whichever side feels that the BBC are not doing what they'd like them to do, and budget cutting, which has meant that they've had to scrape around. But that doesn't excuse them. I mean, the standards should remain. Health and safety should come first. The safety of the workers should be there. Nina, and something needs to happen.
On that, we can be agreed. Well, a BBC spokesperson has said the following. While BBC Studios had complied with the required BBC policies and industry best practice in making the show, there were important learnings which would need to be rigorously applied to future Top Gear UK productions. OK, folks, coming up, a massive development in the world of the royals. This is the royal editor of the Sunday Times, Roya Nicker. She's got an exclusive, and it's about Princess Catherine. After months of cancer treatment, the Princess of Wales is now planning for the future. That's right. She's set to rejoin the royal family in public at the Cenotaph and host Christmas carols. Kate's back. We'll get more on this next.
GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This Bank Holiday Monday will be celebrating National Dog Day by uncovering how many pet owners would rather spend the bank holiday with their pet over their partner. In fact, new research has uncovered the 5 key personas that make up Generation Pet. That's a new wave of post-pandemic pet owners, with 58% saying they worry about their pet being diagnosed with a serious illness. Well, joining us now to tell us more about how we should be caring for our pampered pooches is Dr. Edwina Gildia.
Some of the interesting facts coming through that is that 80% of us think that pet as part of the family. The new pet owners who have come on board during the pandemic, there's a lot to learn with being a new pet owner. Interesting facts, as you mentioned, 1/3 of pet owners are preferring to spend time with their pet this weekend over their partner. 60% of pet owners, and dog watchers specifically calling them out, say that their dog improves their mental health, and 55% noting that improves their physical health by getting out and about.
It's also about showing that love and appreciation for these animals which don't ask anything of us but love.
That was another point that came through this research that we did at Zoetis UK, is that they bring a purpose to life, and I think that's another thing to call out. It's so important for ourselves, for society, to have that purpose, but with that comes responsibility. And that's ensuring that we do support their health, and we know how to do that as well.
If you'd rather spend your bank holiday with your dog than your partner, maybe we've got too much of an over-reliance on our pets?
I think it depends on what way you look at it. For some people, it may be a connection. I think it's a positive thing that we have, and we should celebrate it.
GB News, the People's Channel. Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tomorrow's paper's on the way. Now, normally at this time on a Saturday, we'd be joined by the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Unfortunately, we're having some trouble with the line, but I do have some great royal news, and this is courtesy of the royal editor of the Sunday Times newspaper, Roya Nicker, who writes in tomorrow's paper an exclusive. After months of cancer treatment, the Princess of Wales, Princess Kate, is now planning for the future. The journalist goes on to say Kate hopes to join the royal family at the cenotaph and host her Christmas carols. Work is on her mind, but any return will be gradual. More on that in just a moment, but let's get instant reaction from my pundits, including Linda Jubilee, who, of course, covered the royal beat for a few years.
A long time ago.
There you go.
But I still pay very close attention to it. I think that she's had a long time off. That's an unexpectedly long time. No one's ever really confirmed what type of cancer she has, but some people have mentioned to me that it is bowel cancer. So she probably had to have surgery, chemotherapy and radiotherapy.
And, of course, we don't know, we can't substantiate that it was bowel cancer, but we do know that she had an abdominal issue. That was official information released by the palace, so you could conclude it could be related. Bottom line is she was seriously ill. As you mentioned, she's been out of action since before Christmas of last year. So it's been a really serious situation. We were told that she wouldn't do any public engagements until Easter. It's now September. But is this the good news we've been waiting for, Linda?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, people, you saw at Centre Court, you know, remember in Wimbledon when she walked onto the court, she got a standing ovation. People are incredibly behind her. They regard her as the antithesis, if you like, of Meghan, someone who actually knows how to behave, who knows how to carry the royal standard forward, you know, and she is very, very popular. But you can see from some of the pictures and the very brief times we've seen her, she does look incredibly tired still.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, Nina, she obviously did that very moving video in which she revealed her cancer diagnosis. Yes. We don't know the nature of the cancer, but does this tell us that she's on the mend? Can we be hopeful for the future now?
Well, the cenotaph is November, I think, isn't it?
Yes, it is,
so that will have been a year, which is a very, very long time in anyone's cancer treatment. You know, it is good news. The thing is, we have had for the last 4 or 5 years, Kate in the press every single day. The Daily Mail, the Telegraph, whoever, Hello magazine, every single day there's been, you know, and then suddenly nothing. So there is a huge gap there. There's a huge gap, and so people obviously have missed that, and so she'll be welcome back. But it's not a happy situation for anybody, is it?
No.
What's your reading of this story? I mean, we're trying to desperately interpret these few lines from the Sunday Times, their Roy Nicker, their royal editor. But what's your interpretation of this story, Neil?
I think that you have to consider how the press works. And how the press works on a story of this sensitivity. I don't believe for 1 second Roy Nicker would be running this. I don't believe that the editor of the Sunday Times would be running this unless they were absolutely sure it was copper-bottomed. So I think we can take a lot of relief from that.
Might this story have come from the palace?
Oh, I think it probably has, yeah.
It couldn't come from anywhere else.
And therefore from the Princess of Wales?
Well, in a sort of roundabout way, I guess. But the truth of it is they would not have run with this unless they got an absolutely gold standard nod. And that's got to be from either the Wills and Kate household or from the palace itself. You simply would not risk a story like this if tomorrow morning the royals came out and said this is a disgrace and an intrusion into privacy, and we cannot confirm that.
We don't know whether...
That would kill a career.
Would kill a career. We don't know...
You'd sack an editor for that.
Would you sack an editor? Right. So it could end a career. We don't know the details of Catherine's health or whether she's made a recovery, but we have those precious few words that we've been waiting a long time for, which is the future. And that's what's critical now, isn't it? That she's able to make plans for the future.
Yeah, and I think that she brings such a positivity to British public life. So Nina is absolutely right when she talks about how she was on our front pages day in, day out, week in, week out. And usually she just brought with it a sense of sunshine, didn't she?
Yeah,
however serious the subject was, she brought a gaiety, a joie de vivre, and, you know, she really uplifted our lives. And she also brought with her the children. And that, of course, is the greatest part of this story, that, you know, for her children, the idea that mummy's going to be fine is a huge thing.
This is a huge thing, and the wise words of a former national newspaper editor with us in the studio, Neil Wallace. We've also got Nina Mishkov and Linda Jubilee. In fact, the calibre of journalism tonight is unparalleled, and that's good news because we've got this developing story. If you're just joining us, the Sunday Times, tomorrow's Sunday Times, runs an exclusive in regards to the Princess of Wales, talking about the fact that she's ready to think about work again and ready to get going and make plans for the future. We're going to stay on this story. Will Kate return to public life soon? Good days bring hope of an autumn return. That's one of the lines in tomorrow's papers. We'll stay on this. Is Kate back? We'll discuss that next.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's turning increasingly unsettled across the UK, particularly England and Wales. We see some heavy rain, some thunderstorms, the risk of some localised flooding. This area of low pressure will bring weather systems across much of England and Wales, some brisk winds at times too, but it does pull away, and then we start to see some colder air filtering in from the northwest as we move through next week. But this evening and overnight into Sunday, heavy rain developing and pushing north across England and Wales. There could be some disruption overnight and first thing Sunday morning. A Met Office warning for the rain out. We could see 30 to 50 millimetres, perhaps locally more than this. Further north, it's drier, temperatures generally staying in double figures. So an unsettled start to Sunday, outbreaks of heavy rain. So if we zoom in across England and Wales, we can see outbreaks of heavy rain pushing north and eastward. Some drier spells coming in behind it, but quickly followed by heavy showers. The rain extending into northern England too. Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland generally drier. Best of the sunshine first thing across central and western parts of Scotland. Though still low cloud affecting northern and eastern areas. Temperatures around the low to mid-teens to start the day. Through the day, this area of low pressure will just continue to give outbreaks of rain through England and Wales, which will be heavy at times. There'll be surface spray on the road, some localised flooding. Thunderstorms developing where the sun comes out across eastern and southeastern England for the afternoon. Cooler and cloudier for Northern Ireland and Scotland compared to recent days. Temperatures here 17 to 21, perhaps 22 or 23, and feeling still quite humid in the southeast in any sunshine. For Monday, that weather system starts to pull away. It turns drier and brighter from the west through the day. Sunny spells, but the wind starting to come in from the northwest, starting to feel cooler, and that colder air filtering further south as we head towards the middle of the week with temperatures below average for the time of year. See you soon.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Just gone 10:30, time now for tomorrow's papers. And we start with The Observer. Tory's health reforms left UK open to COVID calamity. Boris Johnson questions on uranium lobby link, and the quiet coach. Lee Carsley, England's interim head coach, looks on as his backroom staff sing the national anthem before the 2-0 Nations League victory over the Republic of Ireland. Sunday Express: winter fuel storm is Labour's poll tax. Sir Keir Starmer faces his first major rebellion this week amid warnings that cuts to winter fuel payments will become his poll tax moment. Daily Star Sunday exclusive: folks blessed with oversized hooters are the slowest at buying a pint. Oi, get your round in, Pinocchio.
That's quite funny.
That's what I call breaking news. An extremely important study has revealed that blokes with large honkers are most likely to duck around at the bar. That's just snout of order. I'm just trying to think who that would implicate. I guess you've got Pinocchio, you've got Gerard Depardieu, haven't you? Can't think of a few others. The Ugly Witches from Cinderella. And last but not least, the Mail on Sunday. Shock figures show exodus of high earners as Chancellor fails to rule out soak the rich new property taxes in budget. Warning over multiple tax raid by Reeves. Those are your front pages, but as my brilliant colleague tonight, my top pundit Neil Wallace, former newspaper editor, has pointed out, those front pages are about to change in the minutes and hours ahead because we have a developing story. Yes, this is breaking news, and it comes courtesy of the royal editor of the Sunday Times. Let me give you the story. This is Roya Nicker, who's got an exclusive, and it's good news. After months of cancer treatment, the Princess of Wales is now planning for the future. She goes on to say Kate hopes to join the royal family at the cenotaph in the autumn and host her Christmas carols. Work is now on her mind, but any return will be gradual. A massive story, this. And Nina Mishkov, it's going to get the country talking. It's going to be all over the papers tomorrow when they get their second editions up and running. Why is the country so attached to this young woman?
Because she is the perfect princess. She has, you know, she was kind of perfect for the role. When she and Will's married, it was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And suddenly there was this gorgeous princess. She's classic English Rose, and she's never put a foot wrong.
Not once.
She's not misspoken. She's not had a tantrum that we've seen. She's not done anything out. You know, she's the only thing we've ever heard her saying are very positive things about charity work, mental health, and she's been very encouraging. So she's become the figurehead that the royal family needed, and without her, there's an enormous gap.
She's the most valuable member of the... was when she was in the public eye, when we hope that she will return full-time. But she was the most valuable member of the royal firm in many respects.
Really? Would you put her ahead of Charles and William?
I'd put her ahead of William, yeah.
Right.
Sure.
She's box office, isn't she?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's because she's got this combination of glamour and dignity and intelligence, which resonates with the public. They both respect and admire her, and they want her to be better. They want her to get back centre stage.
If you're just joining us, tomorrow's Sunday Times newspaper has an exclusive. Princess Kate is now planning for the future following her cancer diagnosis and treatment. And Catherine's got a good relationship with the British press, hasn't she, Neil?
Well, I don't know whether that's really the way to categorise it. Your relationship with the British media is how they perceive you. And a basic truth about this is, if you're in the royal family, your behaviour will come out. So they tried for many years to manipulate and stop stories coming out about Princess Diana, about Charles, about Camilla, you look at every one of the royals, and the stories will come out about their real behaviour, like Meghan. Yeah. You know, the British press loved Meghan and Harry.
People forget that.
And then the stories started to come out about her, how she behaves behind closed doors, as it were, with her stuff. I've never heard the slightest suggestion about anything untoward to do with Kate. And if the story... Sorry.
One moment, Nina.
I would say to you that if it was there, it would come out.
Yeah.
And it's astonishing how she has maintained this perfect relationship with the British
Well, that's
press.
right, because, Nina, these royals are surrounded by courtiers, by staff, butlers, you name it, security. If they were behaving badly, it would come out, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm not so sure that it would, actually. And I would take issue with Neil.
Everything?
No, not everything at all.
Round two.
Just before Harry and Meghan got married, everything had been going brilliantly. They were the new hope. They were the diverse couple. Everybody loved them. Harry had been the most popular member of the royal family, apart from the Queen, way more popular than William, and way more popular than anybody in the royal family. And when that could not be allowed to continue. So the first story that came out, and it sounds very frivolous and petty, but there was a story that Meghan had made Kate cry over something to do with the bridesmaid wearing tights or not wearing tights. As it turned out, years later, we found out that it was the other way round, and it was Kate who'd made Meghan cry. So I would tell you that these things will eventually come out, and nobody...
That was Meghan's version.
So your family in Team Meghan over Team Catherine?
Absolutely. Always have been.
Do you dislike Princess Catherine?
I don't dislike her at all. I feel sorry for her. I feel sorry for her.
In what sense? So what do you mean by that?
I feel sorry for her because she has done her absolute best. She has conformed in every way possible. She's been, give her a gold star for her behaviour and the way she's fitted into the royal role. And I don't think she's a happy woman.
You don't think Catherine is a happy woman?
I do not.
These are damning words from Nina Mishkov.
I'm not damning. I don't think she's happy.
Would you agree with that? I mean, Linda, do you think that's an offensive thing to say about Catherine?
Not at all, because there are times when I think she looks unhappy too. And we all hear stories about things that may have made her unhappy, but we don't talk about those in public. So it doesn't all creep out eventually. I mean, if you think about Princess Diana, there were a lot of stories of her that came out after Lady Colin Campbell wrote her book, then Andrew Morton wrote his book.
About relationships.
Early on, stories did not creep out via the stuff.
Yeah,
not
they
really.
did. Yeah, they did. Harry Arnold wrote endless stories.
But I mean, how can you say that this poor woman is unhappy? I mean, she's battling cancer, isn't she?
No,
you mean before?
I'm talking about before. I'm talking about before. I'm not talking about because we haven't seen her at all.
Right.
I'm saying that I think she's in a very difficult position.
I see. Would you agree with that? Do you think that that there are issues within the royal family, and that it's not only Harry and Meghan that went through mental anguish? Perhaps the Waleses are suffering too.
Well, I think that as Nina puts her hands up, she is Team Meghan. The only person who's ever validated the story that it was that Catherine made Meghan cry was Meghan. That's Meghan's story. No, it was.
It was printed in The Sun about 18 months ago.
Well, then it must be true.
But from Meghan.
Yes, it was from Meghan. Not from Meghan. It was not from Meghan.
But is there anyone else that stood up that story other than Meghan's camp? That it was Meghan who was made to cry?
I'm honestly not sure. I'm honestly not sure.
I mean, who are you inclined to believe? I mean, can you believe anything that Meghan Markle says?
Absolutely. That woman has been vilified, like Yoko Ono was with...
Why did she tell Oprah Winfrey that she'd had her wedding the day before the wedding, which was then dismissed as nonsense by the Archbishop of Canterbury?
In her mind, it was a wedding. If you have some kind of...
So she's mental.
No.
So what you're saying is Meghan is mental.
It's a romantic thing. Honestly, the demolition job that the press has done on Meghan and Harry is absolutely superb.
But I do think they've done it to themselves.
Do you know what, though? I take the late Queen Elizabeth's view on this. Recollections may vary. And I think that Meghan's recollections in particular...
Well, what about this from The Sun newspaper? Sorry to interrupt you, Neil. This is Britta Zeitman in The Sun on the... 21st of July 2022, royal wedding row. Meghan Markle did make Kate Middleton cry in dress row after comparing Charlotte unfavourably to best pal's daughter. There it is in black and white.
That's somebody else. I honestly, I would...
I think she had a different set of rules. This whole thing about emailing staff at 5:30 in the morning after she'd done her salute to the sun or whatever else she does in yoga, that all of that behaviour was normal to her.
Normal to her,
but it is abnormal to other members of the royal household.
But let's bring it back to the story that matters here. What is this really about tonight? We have a cause for celebration.
We do.
And I think it's a cause for celebration that everybody can embrace.
Absolutely.
And I think that what you have here is that at the very least we have the start of the story of Kate coming back to
recovery.
Us. Now, what is a truth is there is no magical cure story, because no cancer doctor would say that anybody was cured in such a short space of time.
Yeah.
But she may well be, hopefully, clear, and they will be looking over the next 5 years to see that it has become permanent.
OK, well, listen, coming up next, Diane Abbott with outrageous revelations regarding her sex life with Jeremy Corbyn.
No!
Imagine. I do hope you're not having your dinner. Also, if you're just joining us, breaking tonight, this exclusive from tomorrow's Sunday Times is all about Princess Catherine. After months of cancer treatment, the Princess of Wales is now planning for the future. It's big news, and we've got more on that next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Did you know several Paralympic GB track and field athletes aim to go for gold this summer in Paris? So aside from pure talent, a British firm has incorporated, get this, space technology in the materials of running clothes to help athletes perform at their ultimate capacity. I'm not sure if I believe this, but we'll find out in a sec. Trailblazing scientists, engineers and designers at British firm Rayner Labs have taken an idea first used in a NASA project, and they've now developed it for over 15 years at Imperial College in London.
First of all, please can you explain to us a bit more about how and what this incredible technology is?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, our founder, Dr. Dolan, spent many years developing these kind of dynamic materials. That means they behave in what's called non-Newtonic way. So they don't follow the rules. Effectively, they can change their behavior depending on kind of stress or stretch you apply to it. So what you get on an athlete level, if you imagine you have a garment, it's supercharged. It's such that the garment changes its support depending on your movement or your activity or the speed at which you run.
So you're saying that it generates, what, more sort of kinetic energy, is that right?
Not quite. It makes you effectively make more out of your own energy. Spot the athletes with the wavy curves and stripes, you'll see that. So that's super polymer we have in combination with these stripes that are kind of built around the way your muscles moves.
You said the difference between first and fourth place is a fraction of a percent.
Yeah, that's the very main difference it makes. So even if you manage to kind of make more of your own energy and improve your performance by 1%, that's the difference between podium and non-podium.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back. More front pages in. Let's take a look at the Sunday Telegraph, and they lead with the following. And it's a shocking story. We were talking about the Beeb in the Take at 10. Just earlier tonight, I was discussing two former presenters of Top Gear, revealing that they warned the BBC about the dangers of some of the stunts, one of which led to a severe and serious accident involving Freddie Flintoff that could have killed him. Well, more bad news for the Beeb. The BBC has breached rules 1,500 times over the Gaza war. A report reveals a deeply worrying pattern of bias against Israel, according to its authors, who analysed 4 months of the BBC's output across television, radio, online news, podcasts and social media. A private school VAT raid faces High Court challenge. And CIA chief, real risk of Russia using nuclear weapons in Ukraine at start of war. OK, Harry, where should we go next? Let's have the Sunday Mirror. The Queen and I, loyal aid on lasting legacy of fun and modest monarch, and half the world away, Oasis tour to go global. Oasis are in talks to take their show on the road with gigs in the US, Mexico and Argentina. Liam and Noel Gallagher have verbally agreed to play abroad after selling out 17 dates in the UK and Ireland next year. The UK ticket chaos is being investigated. Sunday Times, 721 children in rogue surgeon investigation. And let Ukraine use British missiles to hit Russia is the other headline. Cladding justice blocked, says Michael Gove. And some good news, paradise wedding for Mr Bates. Sir Alan Bates, the Post Office campaigner, tied the knot with his partner Suzanne on Necker Island, the Caribbean retreat of Sir Richard Branson, who officiated at the ceremony.
Oh, brilliant.
Isn't that wonderful? A mate of yours, isn't he, Richard Branson? Have you been on Necker Island?
No, I'd love to go.
Nina?
I'd love to go.
You need to have a word. Send him a WhatsApp. Say, we'll come. We'll bring Neil. The Observer, Tory's health reforms left UK open to COVID calamity is the other story. So, look, those are your front pages. But really, there's only one story in town. If you're just joining us, it's very good news about the Princess of Wales, Princess Catherine. This, an exclusive from their royal editor, Roya Nicker. It's about the Princess of Wales, and the headline reads as follows. Let me just call it up because it is very good news. After months of cancer treatment, the Princess of Wales is now planning for the future. Catherine hopes to join the royal family at the Cenotaph and host her Christmas carols. Work is on her mind, but any return will be gradual. It is good news, and Neil, it's not just good news for the nation that want to see this young woman again. Good news for her husband, William, who has his wife on his side and hopefully, in the future, sharing royal duties.
It will make a big, big difference to William. Actually, they've worked so often together, and they just the synergy between them, whenever you see them at an event, is very impressive. And they do seem to spark off each other, and the crowds just love them.
Most definitely. And, of course, Charles, we mustn't forget, Linda, is battling cancer himself, and he'll be heartened by this news.
Absolutely. So if you have a scaled-down, which we do, a scaled-down royal family, slightly scaled down...
Tesco value royal family.
That's exactly right. Every little helps.
Yeah. Nina wouldn't know about that. She's Waitrose through and through.
Oh, no, I go to Tesco. I've got a Tesco club card.
Look at that.
Once you're one person down... But once you're one person down... I don't mean to sound clinical and calculating about this, but once you're one major key person
Goes with
down...
the territory, yeah.
It's a problem for everyone in the firm.
Most definitely, definitely.
The Royals are sadly depleted, and Charles said he wanted a cut down.
And now he's got one.
And he got a really one. And they've been trying to promote Beatrice and Eugenie, for heaven's sake, or suddenly the Duchess of Gloucester is someone you think, well, who
are they?
Who cares? I think William really, really needs Kate there. I am not a huge William fan. I think he does his job very well, but I think he does it reluctantly, and I find him rather entitled.
I think the King's doing really...
Do you prefer Harry?
Oh, God, yes.
Moaning Harry with his podcasts and books.
I would get... Harry has charisma, he has warmth, people flock to him. He's far more natural than William.
He's got two brain cells?
He's the world's least happy millionaire. He's got 16 toilets.
He's not unhappy. He's not unhappy.
Well, why is he always moaning then?
He's not always moaning.
He is always moaning,
He told
Nina.
his story.
Oh, neither he is always moaning.
He's not all his...
But you tell me one positive thing he's said or done.
The Invictus Games, and you cannot argue with
he founded that 6 years ago.
But he's kept it going brilliantly, and he does wonderful work with that.
Fair. We'll give you the Invictus Games. Now tell us something else positive that man has done in the last 5 years. Apart from damaging his family, attacking his father, attacking his stepmother.
And who wouldn't attack Camilla? I'd attack Camilla verbally if I had a chance. I really would.
I don't know if there's anything wrong with her.
You upset my viewers last time you were on by refusing to call her the Queen.
I refused to call her the Queen.
Which is, I think, incredibly rude and...
I'm hoping I'm
very
being
disrespectful.
Rude completely.
I think they're going to have to make some room in the tower for you tonight,
I think she's done quite well lately.
What we'll do, we'll keep you in Paddington for the time being.
Julie Cooper always said to me, she's great fun, gin in her hand and a fag in the other, and she tells fantastically dirty jokes, and I'm sure, but as Queen, it's a different story.
All right. What I'm taking from that is that you know Julie Cooper, which is, I'll say, a mic drop. By the way, briefly, I'll ask you, Neil, Sir Ian McKellen, one of our greatest actors, has described Harry as a right thicko. Is he right?
Yes.
What do you think? Is he? I mean, Ian McKellen's not pulling his punches. He says Charles is damaged,
so I'm going to
and he said Harry is thick.
OK, I'm going to tell you something. In the year that Prince Harry sat his A-level results, Eton didn't publish them
Funny that.
From memory.
You like Harry. Is he one stick short of a Twix?
He's smart enough to take on the British press, and win. He's smart enough to do that.
OK, well, I'll tell you what, let's get on to our final story of the night. Diane Abbott has lifted the lid on the intimate moments of her historic relationship with Jeremy Corbyn. That's right, they got it on, folks. They tried to make a little socialist together. And he sounds exactly like the type of partner you'd guess he was, writing in her autobiography about her lack of romantic dates with Corbyn. She revealed, once after I lamented our lack of social activity as a couple, he pondered it for a few days and told me we were going out. Feeling excited, I dressed up nicely and we bundled into the car. I had no idea where we were going, perhaps a nice wine bar. It turned out Jeremy's idea of a social outing was to drive me to Highgate Cemetery and proudly show me the tomb of Karl Marx. Not what I call a hot date. What do you think about that?
Deary me. What did she
boy Jezza.
Come on.
Yeah, that's it. Did he get his leg over? And I'm not talking about Karl Marx. Listen, can I say I've thoroughly enjoyed the company of my pundits tonight. My pundits, lovely. Neil, Linda and Nina. We'll catch up soon, folks. Do return presently. Tomorrow night, we've got former Tory MP Neil Parish, broadcaster Michael Crick and former Tory Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins, plus Anne Widdecombe, and a whole range of other stars, plus The Big Opinion and The Take at 10. It's great to be back. I've missed you. See you tomorrow at 9. Headliners is next.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's turning increasingly unsettled across the UK, particularly England and Wales. We see some heavy rain, some thunderstorms, the risk of some localised flooding. This area of low pressure will bring weather systems across much of England and Wales, some brisk winds at times too, but it does pull away and then we start to see some colder air filtering in from the northwest as we move through next week. But this evening and overnight into Sunday, heavy rain developing and pushing north across England and Wales. There could be some disruption overnight and first thing Sunday morning. A Met Office warning for the rain out. We could see 30 to 50 millimetres, perhaps locally more than this. Further north, it's drier, temperatures generally staying in double figures. So an unsettled start to Sunday, outbreaks of heavy rain. So if we zoom in across England and Wales, we can see outbreaks of heavy rain pushing north and eastward. Some drier spells coming in behind it, but quickly followed by heavy showers. The rain extending into northern England too. Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland generally drier. Best of the sunshine first thing across central and western parts of Scotland. There's still low cloud affecting northern and eastern areas. Temperatures around the low to mid-teens to start the day. Through the day, this area of low pressure will just continue to give outbreaks of rain through England and Wales, which will be heavy at times. There'll be surface spray on the road, some localised flooding. Thunderstorms developing where the sun comes out across eastern and southeastern England for the afternoon. Cooler and cloudier for Northern Ireland and Scotland compared to recent days. Temperatures here 17 to 21, perhaps 22 or 23, and feeling still quite humid in the southeast in any sunshine. For Monday, that weather system starts to pull away. It turns drier and brighter from the west through the day. Sunny spells, but the wind starting to come in from the northwest, starting to feel cooler, and that colder air filtering further south as we head towards the middle of the week with temperatures below average for the time of year. See you soon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Desning Demand. Good luck. Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
What prompted you to go on your incredible journey?
Well, you know, I was fighting my own demons at the time, you know, before I started the walk, and it had been a long journey, if you like. And, you know, I knew that I needed to make a change, and my daughter had just flown the nest. I was a single parent before this, and previous to that, I was ex-parachute regiment. And I knew that I needed to make a change, because if I didn't,